Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live at the Waterhole. It's been a while since I've had the joy and pleasure to be able to take you all through the different cameras that we have across Africa. And we're starting off here at Old Donyo. Always a hub of activity. It's me, Trishana, by the way. And I'm really excited to start here. Now we have a wonderful bachelor herd, and I wonder if it's the same bachelor herd I've been seeing at this waterhole for past couple weeks, actually, maybe even more than that. But over the last few weeks, I've been, well, it might actually just be because I've been paying more attention to the Oldonyo waterhole in the recent months, but I've been seeing a bachelor herd very often. And the group has a couple identifying features, and we'll get into that in a moment. But remember that we're live and interactive, so you can send through questions and comments. I do love to hear from all of you. You can do that by heading over to our website and registering to send questions and comments. You can even head over to Twitter and use that hashtag Wilder to just keep up with the conversation. And if you are in the YouTube chat, you can use @FC. And all your questions and comments will come through. It looks like it's a beautiful day up in Kenya in this area. Oldonyo is located in Chulu Hills. And on a really nice clear day, you get to see Mount Kilimanjaro just over the border into Tanzania. But today it's pretty cloudy and incredibly active. Oh, I love these sounds. So this doesn't seem to be the bachelor herd I'm used to seeing in this area. They all have intact tails, and for the most part, they've all got tusks, and their ears are quite complete. We have some zebra, obviously in the background there, some eland. I saw some giraffes earlier. And of course, these wonderful ellies. I think there's two groups coming in here. The first group got a little bit, not exactly nervous, but a little bit cautious as two more bulls came in. Oh, nice. We have a whole lot of hellos coming through and some comments. Joanne Mello, you say happy Monday. Oh, the giraffe just in the background there. Sorry, Joanne. The giraffe in the background that's coming through, it just gave a great old stomp onto the ground to get all of those oxpeckers off of it. You never know where to look at this waterhole. It is so busy, almost all the time. But Joanne Mello, you said happy Monday. I must confess something. I think Mondays are my favorite days of the week. It's weird, right? But I really enjoy Mondays. Never thought I'd ever say that. Just something about the beginning of the work week. So much potential. It helps if your work involves animals. So much to see. Drila, you say you love elephants. So do I. There are times when I can sit and watch this waterhole for hours. And that's how you get familiar with the animals that are present at a waterhole. Particular individuals. Jive Bunny, it's nice to see you or to hear you as well. It has been, it's been a long time since I've done Live at the Waterhole. But this month you'll hear a little more of me. I'm not traveling very much this month, so I get to stay home and enjoy time with all of you. Mercedes Beatty, you say greetings and happy Monday, and it's good to hear me again. Thank you so much. And Catherine says it's also nice to have me on the show. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. And Sandy, you say you're waiting for one tusk, one ton, or twisted tusk. Yep. I'm also looking forward to seeing the one with no tail. This group that Sandy is talking about, that's the group that I've been seeing quite a lot of at the waterhole. Oh. What I really enjoy, and it's an interesting thing here at the Old Donyo Waterhole, we don't see a whole lot of breeding herds coming through. We do see them, but by far we see more bachelor herds and more elephant bulls coming through than we do see breeding herds. And what I love about these bachelor herds is that once everyone's had a little bit of a drink and the purpose of coming to the waterhole has been satisfied, they start to play. And they start to get a little funny, and it becomes really interesting to watch. The relationship between them, how they play, who appears to be more dominant. We get to look at identifying features. We get to see how they interact with other animals as well. And I find that really, really interesting. And that's what's happening right now. Moonbeam, you say it looks almost like it's orchestrated. It does, especially like you say with the giraffe in the middle that was standing and just kind of watching. The giraffe in the center or moves to center while the zebras spread out and the elephants move around to find their next position. It does seem like a well-rehearsed, delicate operation. But I'm particularly interested in what you said about the ellies walking in a circle or moving positions, because there is a pipe here at this waterhole where fresh water is fed through. And obviously that's the prize for elephants. If you can get to that pipe, that's the best. And as one finishes up at the pipe, it's almost like there's a line and the next one moves through. Now, I don't often see them spraying themselves here at Old Donyo. I have seen it before, but it's not something that you see very, very often, particularly not with mud. It doesn't seem like this waterhole gets incredibly muddy. But then if you think about it, elephants, we know, really enjoy and seek out clean water. Now, if that is the case, and you know that Old Donyo is this treasure, essentially, with that nice pipe feeding in the fresh water, you wouldn't want to muddy it. Spray yourself with some water, sure. But definitely not grabbing mud and making the whole pan all murky. Because that would mean that they'd have to wait for the sediment to settle so they can drink again. Oh, a little back and forth there. So if you watch the individual that came in from the right, and then he moved across all the way to the left, you can just see his ear on the left there. There he is, poking his head off. Out there to the left. He came in quite dominantly, you know? And I want to watch him because he also seems quite big. The zebras are thinking this is their opportunity to move in. Let's just take a moment to watch here. Live at the Waterhole is all about the fact that you can sit and watch and immerse yourself, and there's moments where we can just listen to the animals and their interactions. And here at the Waterhole, here at Old Donyo, hear that sucking sound? That's them sucking on the pipe. So I'm just going to be quiet for a few moments. And we can take in all these sounds. Oh, I thought the giraffe was going to be extra brave and come in. The giraffes here at Old Donyo are far braver, in my opinion, or far more confident, I should say, in my opinion, compared to the other waterholes that we visit here at Live at the Waterhole. But I suppose having 6 elephant bulls around is enough to intimidate anybody. Very confident looking zebra going past too. And Jive Bunny, I must agree with you. You say the Old Donyo, the musical, especially with that zebra nodding and walking by with such confidence. Or at least it looks like confidence, but in fact it's quite a, I suppose, a slightly aggravated stance. The moving of the head. It really wants to get in there. And Sandy, you're saying that the zebras make it murky, and obviously, yes, the elephants like the fresh water. And the zebras can make it murky here at Old Donyo. Sometimes they step right into the waterhole. Now, all that means is that the elephants would have to wait for that sediment to settle. And this can take a long time. All these animals waiting to get to this waterhole. Now, I've sat here and watched a bachelor group like this absolutely monopolize the waterhole, and they can be here for hours. And that means that these zebras will have to wait, although sometimes they do get a gap, and sometimes the bachelor herd just needs a little bit of a shove, you know. There are others waiting. It just takes one brave zebra to push its way in, and the others will follow. But the elephants still tend to hang around a little bit. But it's that initial bravery that is the most scary part, I think. Yeah, the zebra looks very afraid. You see its trembling lip. That is not a biological observation at all. Animals don't tremble their lips when they're afraid, but it certainly looks like it. It's just a little bit agitated. Waiting patiently. There we go. Nice and close on this very, very scared zebra. Like I said, it is not scared. It's just a lot of the time animals have a similar or do a similar thing that we do. They might twitch a little bit. You might see elephants twisting their trunks. You might see zebras moving their lips. And the same movement that it was using, the curling of the lips, that's typically what we'd see when they're going to do a phlegm and grimace. So they can kind of activate the vomeronasal organ so they can get a better idea of what they're smelling. But while it might be a similar movement that we are looking at, that's not what it was doing. The phlegm and grimace lasts for a lot longer and is not a repetitive movement of the lip. So I would say that's just an expression of a little bit of nervousness or agitation, wanting to get in and have a drink. Now in Kenya, this is one of the dry seasons. So this waterhole will be particularly busy at this time. So it's no wonder. Oh, look at this. What a wonderful big bull coming through. It seems like it's just getting busier and busier with elephants. Poor zebras are gonna really have to wait to see. The giraffe has given up, but they sometimes move off to the right. So they might just be waiting in that area. Oh, it looks like one tusk has come through. Oh, nice. I wonder if we'll see the others as well. Maybe one ton will come through. The short-tailed one will come through. So here in South Africa, look at that, there's just so many elephants. Here in South Africa, at least for the most part, we get our rains in the summer and we have quite a defined wet and dry season. But here in East Africa and in Kenya, there are kind of 2 dry seasons and 2 wet seasons. Oh, here comes the giraffe. Just poking its head in, checking in. Still elephants around? Yep. Is there a gap? Nope. So there's the 2 rainy seasons from about March to May, and that's the heaviest one. And then there's a shorter rainy season, November, December. And then the dry seasons are January, February, and then the cold dry season, like our winter here in South Africa, is from about May to October. So we're in that cooler, dry season here at Old Donyo at the moment. Sandy, you say it looks like they need more water in that water hole. I'm sure they would love that. But I found a lot of the water holes that have an artificial means of filling, like a pipe or something like that. And if nearby lodges control it, like the El Doño Lodge, they tend to try and mimic the natural climate at that time. What would it normally be like? So if it is the wet season, you might see that the waterhole is a lot higher because there is more water flow. And in the dry season, they kind of limit that water flow. Now, I don't know if that is true for the El Doño waterhole right now, but we do know it's artificially fed. And it's something that I've observed with other artificially fed pans and waterholes at other lodges. So it could be that that's what's happening here too. This camera's field of view is just not big enough for all the animals. So some of the bulls that were originally here when we started have left, but other bulls have come in. Oh, and the zebra's deciding just to have a little snack off to the right as well. Yeah, why not? Oh, they've seen a gap. No, just too much. So we've seen the one tusk elephant bull come in. I'm hoping that others that we know well will come in too. I would really like to see one ton. Oh, there's a little squeal there. Now, one ton has been suffering with a tusk injury. So I wanted to have a look at him, see how he's doing. Last time I saw him, he looked pretty healed, but he was still displaying some behaviors that indicated that he was experiencing discomfort. But we'll just have to wait and see if he makes an appearance. Oh, some zebras have made it in, everyone. It's finally happened. See, the elephants are quite nice. It's just this initial burst of courage that the zebras need to penetrate the circle of elephant bulls. And like with any resource, even if we're looking at family groups, whether it's a herd of zebra or a pride of lions, if a resource is limited, it can get a little heated, even amongst family groups. Or social groups, I should say, because zebras are not necessarily family groups. I'm just going to be quiet for a little bit because I can hear quite a lot of zebra interaction and noise. Yep, lots of bucking. Let's have a listen. I could hear some really awesome sounds there. It seems that more elephant bulls are coming in. The zebras are really putting on a show. But down here in South Africa at Olifants River, There's some more elephants that are around, and I'd love to see them around that river area. So how about we head over? There we go. Very much a more peaceful sighting with some elephants. At El Doño, there was so much happening, which is absolutely beautiful. It is a treat, really, to see that kind of interaction. But since there are elephants down here at Olifants, we thought we'd just head over to have a quick look. If things get, or if things remain the way they are at El Doño, we'll obviously head back. But it looks like we also have a bachelor group here. Now, I was hoping that we might see them cross the river. So that is a stunning sight, especially at sunset. Oh my goodness. Now we are some time away from sunset, but watching them cross the river is always a delight. They are also very cautious as they cross the river. Majority of animals here at the Olifants River, and that's because this river is home to crocodiles, to hippos, and very many of them. But animals do have to cross the river if they want to get to other areas. But they are very, very cautious about it. With the El Doño camera, it's positioned right there at the waterhole. So we get quite a close look at everything that's happening at the waterhole. But here at the Olifants River, this is quite zoomed in. And ordinarily, or where the camera is positioned, I should say, you get a really beautiful wide view of everything happening around the river. We're going to try and get that view in a moment, because it really shows the extent of the Olifants River and the surrounding areas, the riverine vegetation, the patches of the grasslands. It really looks like a paradise for wildlife. So many spots that they can take advantage of, so many resources. Ah, there we go. You can really see the river bending. You can see some impala, at least it looks like impala from here, crossing the river. Well, not crossing the river, they've already crossed and have moved over to the other side. Oh, I just love this. There's something so special about being able to be in a wildlife area or wild space where there's flowing water. It just makes you feel so good. And it makes me feel like there's abundance. There's enough for all the animals. I suppose childishly makes me feel like there's enough resources for everyone. Like they're all happy. But there really is something about flowing water that is very special. Particularly these shallows. We saw a couple of those shallows off to the left there. Oh, you can hear the water. Now we've still got a few months to go before the first rains hit us. But here and the Olifants West Game Reserve, where the Olifants River goes through, there's always some water to be found. Ah, and we've got another elephant over on that side. Oh, you can see it's really breezy. Maybe I mistook what I thought was water, the sound of water, for the sound of all these leaves moving about. Hi, Victoria. You'd like to know, is there a difference in the elephants that we see in different parts of Africa? I suppose the simple answer is no. I mean, unless you're thinking about savanna elephants versus forest elephants, which they're different, obviously. But if we're talking just about the species of savanna elephants, then no, there isn't a genetic difference to the extent where it makes them a completely different species between different areas in Africa. But you are going to see subtle differences, subtle genetic differences. And those are a result of populations being isolated to an extent from each other. Ooh, do we have a little bushbuck here? Looks like it. So what I have found personally is that the elephants that I see up in East Africa, they tend to be, or I should say the elephant bulls, they tend to be really big and they have quite large tusks, something that we don't really see as much of here in southern Africa. Essentially, that's a result of, and there's a few factors at play here. One, it's historical. So there are significant portions of the population of elephants in southern Africa where poaching has affected the amount of animals or tuskless animals we see. In East Africa, there was also poaching, but perhaps because they had regulations come in a little bit sooner, it stopped that, but that's just pretty much guessing. But there are small things that can influence little characteristics about elephants across the continent, and that could be resource availability, it could be historical events, whether there has been poaching in the past or not, and the extent of that poaching. It could be things like fences. So lots of little things come into play. So there are subtle differences like that, but ultimately they are all the same species. All savanna elephants. Now, if we're talking about the forest elephants only found in very specific locations in Africa. We don't have a whole lot of true forest, but you are going to find forest elephants in places like Gabon or in the Congo, where we actually get thick forests. And if you get to see forest elephants, you are very, very, very lucky. Hello, hippo. Just chillin'. Why not? Considering that the wind that we're seeing on this camera, I would probably be chilling in the water too, where the wind can't get me. Looks like a nice warm patch too. Oh, well, those are really nice horns coming through there. Beautiful. Just as we got a nice view of a crocodile doing pretty much the same thing as the hippo, just chilling. And earlier we were talking about the elephants and any animal that crosses the river being extra cautious because of the abundance of crocodiles and hippos in the area. And thankfully, the animals have played along and showed you. It looks like it's all about the elephants today for Live at the Waterhole. We've got some elephants at Tembe as well, so we're going to go over and have a look at them. Though I would like to come over to this croc again a little later, but for now, over to Tembe. Looking at the elephants in the other areas, apart from Aldonio, they all seem so relaxed, taking it easy. And this bull is no different. We've got some Nyala in the back there as well. Now, Tembe Elephant Park is in northern KwaZulu-Natal on the eastern coast of South Africa. Get this really nice thick vegetation in that area and lots of nyalas as well. Now this elephant bull that we were watching initially was super calm at the water, having a nice drink, and then this other guy came through. With elephant bulls, I feel like every time they see a conspecific and an animal like themselves, it's an opportunity to show off. I think that's exactly what's happening here. So a little bit of interaction there, showing off just a bit, letting each other know the size and the might of other individuals nearby. There was a little bit of a tussle as well. But at the end of the day, none of this is super serious business. Well, maybe I spoke too soon. Just a little bit of sparring. I think there's a slight bit of irritation on the part of the elephant on the left. As soon as that smaller one came through, it wasn't even very close before the other elephant turned around and wanted to give it a little piece of its mind. But the largest elephant between the three is busy eating. So I think this is quite a playful interaction. These interactions, I liken it to interactions one may have with a sibling. Yes, you might get a little irritated, but you're still playing. Sometimes that playing can go too far and someone gets hurt. And it can look painful or serious, but you know when it gets serious. Everything changes. The whole feeling of it changes. It looks like the elephant on the left is trying to push the smaller one away. But it seems like this particular clump of vegetation is too good. Although it is reaching its trunk out, that Ellie could want to greet the larger elephant. Or he's just after some vegetation. He seems unsure himself. Well, things have calmed down just a little bit, and I would like to have a look at that wonderful crocodile at Olifant's River that we just saw before we headed here to Tembe. So if we could go back and have a look, and then maybe we'll pop up to Oldonyo after that. There we go. Oh, isn't it a beaut? The light is falling on it just perfectly, so we can see each one of these osteoderms. It really looks like there's an armor covering this entire crocodile. You can also see how shallow the water is here. Still some nice flow, but there's a lot of sun hitting the back of this crocodile. Oh, the shadows are just absolutely stunning. This Nile crocodile looks very, very peaceful. Joanne Mello, you say, awesome croc. It is an awesome croc. Now, each one of those scales, and they are modified scales, all the way from the tip of the tail, kind of looks very much like a dinosaur, all the way across the body to even the actually on the back, so not in the same way as sticking out as the scales are along the edges of the tail. All of those are osteoderms. So those are types of modified scales that include bits of bone. So normally when we look at scales on a reptile, they're made up of keratin, like our nails and our hair. And that means that they can quite easily tear. Well, not very, very easily, but they can be torn. But osteoderms, imagine a keratin outside, but a bony interior. So it really is like a bony armor covering the body of the crocodile. Rebecca Bishop, hi. You say it's and I agree with you. You can't tell if the croc is small or further away than it looks. It is really hard to tell. And that's the one thing about having remote cameras. Unless you have something else to compare the size to, it can be really, really difficult. But thankfully, we do have a little vegetation close by. Now, exactly what vegetation it is, I wouldn't be able to tell you what species, but we can be fairly certain, at least on the top right corner there, there's a couple leaves. Now, leaves are not going to get huge when it comes to aquatic plants that we see here in this area. It looks quite reed-like, well, not exactly reed-like, more grass-like. So there's a really long blade leaf there. I wouldn't be able to judge the size of that leaf at all, but at least it gives us a little bit of perspective. I would say that this crocodile is about 8 to 10 leaves, if that offers us the slightest bit of perspective. And then we encounter the next problem. Is that a big crocodile or a small crocodile? Still the same problem. It is really, really difficult to tell. What is nice is if we see other animals coming past. But based on the girth of this particular crocodile, I don't think it's a very big one. The shadows that are being cast by the osteoderms are really, really obvious, really solid. But as crocodiles get older, the osteoderms on their body, because their body is getting larger, they kind of flatten out a little bit. It's not the actual osteoderms that are flattening out, but it's the body is stretching, it's getting larger, so the space between them gets larger, and they tend to be a little rounder. But yeah, everything looks very like typical crocodile if I were going to draw a crocodile, you know? So I would say that it's not very large. Again, what does that mean? Adult male Nile crocodiles can be anything from 3 to about 6 meters. They could weigh up to a ton, theoretically. But I guarantee you we're not looking at a 6-meter, 1-ton crocodile right here. I would say that it's about maybe 2.5 meters. And I would say that that's my upper estimate. I think that was really peaceful, watching this croc as it sunbathes. Makes me a little envious. So we've just pulled back a little bit to try and get us a bit of perspective. Yeah, it's a pretty small croc. Now, I said to you that I'd like to head back up to El Doño and see what's going on there, seeing if the action has died down or perhaps it's picked up. Let's go over and have a look. Definitely hasn't died down. We've got a nice eland right in front of us. They were kind of hanging around in the back before. Oh, very interesting horns there. Now, that's not something that's usual. Eland do have twisted horns, so they belong to the Trigolaphini tribe of antelope, so spiraled horned antelope. Those horns look like that might have been a developmental issue. If you imagine horns budding at certain points in the skull, if something to begin with has a I am busy explaining here with my hands and I realize you can't see me. So when horns grow out of the skull, there's a little bud. Now imagine that little bud in the same or similar way to how elephant tusks grow out of their mouths. Those little buds with elephants, they have tushes, which kind of they hold the space for where the tusk is going to grow out. For horns, you have these little buds. So with the horns, it's bone. With the tusks, it's dentin and pulp. Now, when there is a disturbance to that area, it can alter the direction of growth. And that's why we see elephants that may have tusks that point downwards or slightly twisted or not the usual way that we'd see them. So they have like crooked teeth, kind of like that. So horns, a similar thing can happen. Now, it could be a genetic thing that has resulted in her having horns that don't separate in the same way as other elands do. Or it could be that when she was young, maybe she headbutted something. I'm being very simplistic here. But she could have headbutted something or had an injury to that portion of her head that could result in a change to the direction of growth. So nothing's wrong with the horns, it's just the direction of growth is a bit off. And the same goes for elephants that have tusks that are a little bit wonky as well. Thea, you say it's a peaceful sight with the zebras and the elephants. It definitely is peaceful, but there is still a hint of tension. Definitely feel the tension. And Miss M, you say, wow, Old Donyo is packed today. It really, really is. Had a wonderful variety here at Old Donyo. And I don't see the one tusk elephant anymore. Maybe he's moved off. But they just kind of hang around the periphery as well. I saw an oryx. I saw some zebra. We can still see the zebra. There's some giraffe. Oh, there we go. A little bit of mud bathing. Just when I was saying earlier that I don't often see it at Old Donyo. Seen them spraying water on themselves, but that was proper mud. Oh, we have a nice look at the horns there. And I wanted to, I wanted to have a good look because Mindy Tillipal, hi Mindy, you have a really interesting question. You'd like to know what could be the purpose of the curvature of the horns and why wouldn't they all be straight? And that's something I've thought about a lot. And I think, firstly, we know that genetic mutations that don't hinder an animal's survival can persist. So it could be that initially, when curved horns or twisted horns initially started, that perhaps it didn't cause any problems for the animal. And so it persisted and then was passed on to the future generations. And then potentially being used as a form of, or being used in sexual selection and then being used defensively. Oh, yay! It's no tail. Nice. Some of the bulls that we're used to are coming through. Very nice. But Mindy, there was one other thing that I can come across previously that I thought was really interesting, and something I had not thought about in the past when it came to horns. And that was that maybe, obviously, there would have to be an initial genetic mutation that resulted in horns being different shapes across different tribes of antelope. But could it also have been used to differentiate species? Because antelopes can interbreed, and it is possible for them to interbreed. Not all of them, but some of them can. So would it have been valuable for them to be able to easily differentiate species amongst themselves? Because isn't it wasteful to be carrying, I mean, from a biological perspective, isn't it wasteful to be carrying and caring for offspring that are infertile? I thought that was a really interesting idea. It's not something I thought about previously, but a genetic mutation in the shape of the horns could have really helped species to figure out who their conspecifics are. I mean, it's a bit. I'm not 100% convinced of it, because there are so many other features that animals will use to identify their kin, their herds, their species. So it's not just the horns, but it was an interesting thought. But ultimately, it all stems from a genetic mutation that results in that twisted horn, and then it being useful to persist, or at the very least, not causing any detriment to the survival of an antelope. That's a really interesting question. It's something that I really have thought about in the past, and ultimately it's just we don't know. All we know is that it didn't cause any issue. All we can say for certain, it didn't cause any problems for the survival of the specific species. Now, with the arrival of No Tail, and I don't think One Tusk is here anymore, I'm hoping that One Ton comes along. And Jive Bunny, you wanted to know if One Ton has an eye issue. I didn't notice an eye issue. No, I haven't noticed an eye issue previously. But hopefully he comes through and we'll be able to have a closer look. Rebecca Bishop, you say zebras are generally pretty mean, especially to each other. I like that you put your mean in inverted commas, because I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, they can be a little aggressive towards each other, their own kin, their other individuals in the herd. And we were hearing a lot of it in that commotion. thinking about the elephants that we're used to seeing around here. And sometimes the even the animals that we see, like even lions in a pride, sometimes they get named after their most obvious feature. And sometimes I feel bad for them when that happens. Not a very excited elephant bull there. Don't think it would be okay if I didn't mention it. There we go. But we get, no tail, one tusk, twisted tusk, short trunk, half ear. And I sometimes think, imagine if we had to name our, not relatives, oh gosh, this is a strange train of thought. What would your name be if you were named after one of those features? I'd love to know. So the very excited elephant bull on the right is the individual, I think, that has the injury to the tip of the trunk. Hopefully we can have a closer look. We've been seeing him here at the waterhole quite a lot as well. Looks like it might be an old snare injury. It's pretty much healed. It's right at the bottom. There we go. Yep, that's him. Now he's gotten along just fine with this injury. And it is absolutely incredible how well he's gotten along with this injury. Can you see there's actually a hole there? Now he still uses the tip of his trunk to drink. It functions completely normally. And it appears to be an old-ish injury because he's recovered from it so well. We did have quite a long discussion during one of the Africam shows about this specific injury and this specific elephant. And he does so well. He hasn't had an opportunity to actually go in, and or at least for us to have a look at how he drinks, but I really want you to see this. Now, we were discussing, when I said that previously on an African show, we spoke about this specific elephant. And we were thinking, oh, gosh, everything seems so much more dramatic when you zoomed in. You just see legs moving in all sorts of directions and dust being kicked up. So we were thinking about why wouldn't that injury be attended to, since it was caused by a snare, so it's a human-induced medical issue for this elephant, or a human-caused one. But it would take, I think, it would cause, there would be a lot more potential problem if they had to dart this elephant and then try to stitch up that portion of his trunk. Because you're just introducing another potential point of failure, because that means tranquilizing the elephant, hoping that the elephant does find tranquilized and then also is able to get up. And some individuals, not just species, but some specific individuals can do better under anesthesia than others. So darting him, taking care of that injury will likely, or it could cause other problems when clearly he's doing very, very well. And I find it incredibly interesting that he is still able to suck up water with that trunk, and it doesn't fall out. It's as if he's learned to suck up water and push it against the front of his trunk as he picks the water up, so it's not spilling out. But on the way down, if he's pushing water out of his trunk, it does spill out. But on the way up, he has such control over the water that he's pulling up. I find it absolutely incredible. Whoa, things are so filling up here. I'm just gonna keep quiet again. It's the most stunning view. El Doño just keeps on giving. That was an interesting sound before it got stuck. I almost thought it sounded like something might have been chomping on the camera there. That's just very interesting. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Aldonio back. I hope something like an angry zebra has not decided to chomp on any cables. It wouldn't be the first time. Animals have had interesting interactions with the various cabling that allows us to view these cameras. I think it was it not here at Tembe at the camera. Yes, it was here at Tembe. The camera had to be replaced because some bees had built a hive right in the tech box. And that's what we owe this really nice new perspective of Tembe to. Some bees that decided to make the tech area home. Doesn't feel like something zebras would do, though, to chomp it away. But Rebecca Bishop, as you were saying, zebras can be quote-unquote mean sometimes. And they do have those, or at least male zebras do have some pretty significant canine teeth, or at least pointy canine teeth. They're not big relatively, but they are pointy. Now, most herbivores, now they still have canine teeth, but they are modified to pretty much act as incisors. But with male zebras, they're still nice and pointy. But let's hope we can get Aldonio back soon. Oh, Dark Mane Lover, you wanted to know, do elephants suffer from arthritis due to very heavy bodies and their bones, of course? I have heard that elephants can suffer from osteoarthritis, but it's something that, so arthritis in general, well, osteoarthritis is when joints and cartilage and bone start to degenerate. And it happens especially if you're carrying extra weight. As you get older, humans suffer from it as well. And it is something that you see in elephants also. And in humans, we know that if you are continuously active and you are working those joints and you are doing weight-bearing exercises and things like that, that can really help to prevent osteoarthritis as you get older. What is interesting is that the osteoarthritis that we have seen in elephants are seen in captive animals. So there's 2 points there. One, of course, they're seen in captive animals because we're not testing for osteoarthritis in wild animals, and if we do, it's a very few individuals because they're usually darted for some other reason. Maybe they're going to get a collar, maybe they need to be treated for something, and then they can be checked up for something else. But vets are not darting elephants for the purpose of checking if they have osteoarthritis, all right? So that's already the data kind of skewed. But the fact that it's picked up fairly commonly in captive elephants, and usually that would be Asian elephants, because Asian elephants do better in captivity. African elephants do not do well in captivity. The fact that it's picked up in those animals, which usually are roaming around, so carrying their body weight and essentially exercising with their body weight over tens of kilometers daily. But in captivity, they're not able to do that type of exercise. They can't walk tens of kilometers. So a couple of points there. Now, whenever we see information coming out of captive individuals. It can give us insights into animal populations and species that we wouldn't ordinarily have, and that is very, very valuable for effective conservation. But it also skews the data because animals in captivity are in a completely different environment. It's not a natural environment. There isn't any resource scarcity. There's not enough space. They aren't with natural predators. So it changes the health of an animal on an individual level. Not on a genetic level, but on an individual level. And sometimes it can... So animals in captivity, they tend to have longer lifespans than wild animals for those very reasons. Resource availability, no predators, and it's essentially cared for. So data that comes out of captive individuals is very valuable, but it is also not reflective of what happens in the wild. While those are important points, the answer to your question, which kind of got lost in all of that, was that yes, they can suffer from osteoarthritis, but it's something we see in captive animals. And I think the walking around, them getting that exercise, the tens of kilometers that they walk in a day can be, I mean, elephants have home ranges. They don't have territories. They can walk 50 kilometers, 60, 70 kilometers in a day if they needed to. And all of that weight bared by the joints consistently is definitely going to help in the same way as exercise helps us. Make sure we don't degenerate, our muscles don't atrophy, and we can reduce the potential problems with our bones and our joints. And just because that information or osteoarthritis found in captive elephants, just because it is coming from zoos and sanctuaries and things like that, doesn't mean it doesn't apply to the wild population. It just means that we have to consider that when we're thinking about the information. Della, you say you don't think Asian elephants have a good life in captivity. I mean, obviously, it's really difficult for us to say, one, what a good life is, and two, what elephants feel about their lives, that is. So it's a really difficult one to like rationalize. But when I say that Asian elephants do better in captivity than African elephants, I mean that from a research perspective and from what it means to keep captive animals. So the same goes for like fish may do better in captivity and do better in captivity, so aquariums, than dolphins or orcas do. So it's a matter of uh, the logistics and the behaviors, as opposed to um, an opinion on whether they're happy in captivity. I think all animals deserve to have a life that is normal for them. They all deserve to live in the habitats for which they have found a niche. But I also know that there are some animals that have been taken as exotic pets and all sorts, that need a safe place to go to where they can at least have a life that reflects the natural environment. And so places like sanctuaries are really important, even though those animals are still in captivity. And modern zoos are very much transforming into that, transforming into sanctuaries. And most importantly, they are an excellent place to study animals, to research, to become better conservationists. A lot of them are genetic banks for hundreds and thousands of species across the world. So they are very, very valuable for conservation. But I say modern zoos because not all of them are like that. And certainly in the past, they pretty much weren't like that at all. Lots of zoos have breeding programs as well, which take a lot of effort, a lot of money, and help for populations to persist in the wild. Now, something that I think is absolutely atrocious is when individual people have exotic pets. How people can keep tigers or lions or leopards is, I just don't understand. It's not like they have a trained staff to be able to take care of the natural needs of those animals. It's not like they're offering education, furthering the education of young conservationists, sparking curiosity and interest. It's none of those things. It's just because I want. And I don't think that's okay. Luckily, there are laws and more laws that are protecting animals and preventing people from keeping exotic pets. And that leads back to why it's really important to have zoos and sanctuaries. Because all those animals need to go somewhere too. And no, they cannot just be released into the wild. They can eventually, but there has to be a transition period. And at the end of the day, all of these things would go by quicker. We'd all be a lot happier about the state of zoos, etc., and the quick release of animals back into the wild. All of that takes funding. And that's where I think a lot of how we feel about animals in captivity falls flat. Because we don't have the resources to be able to fund relocation projects. When I say we, I mean us as individuals. But ultimately, it needs to fall on bigger institutions. Oh, Darkmane Lover, you are very welcome. You're very, very welcome. And Mandy Tillapau, you're also very welcome. I love having interesting discussions, as you all know. Anyway, can you believe it? We have half an hour left together. And Aldonio camera is back in action. So let's head back up. It just doesn't stop here, does it? Just doesn't stop. Now recently, so you do get striped hyenas up here, and aardwolves as well. And the aardwolf was seen during the day recently. And I would love to see it. Oh. We did see the striped hyena once during the day as well, but most of the time we see it at night. It is always pumping here. Now let's see if there's been any change of the guard with our elephants. Okay, first we will observe these zebras that are showing us the basic functions of their body. Thank you, thank you. Nope, they're not going to move aside. That's fine. So we saw one tusk and we saw no tail. And I think... Where's the pizza guy? I can't find your question. Pizza man, that's it. You wonder how he lost his tail. That is a really interesting question, because if you had a look at No Tail earlier, you could see that the tail is missing very close to its body. So it's not usually what we would expect from, say, if it was a crocodile or a lion or something like that. When elephants have those kinds of injuries to their tail, it's usually half the tail that's missing. There is still some length to it, but No Name has nothing. Except, of course, the fatty little knob from which the tail comes out. So I'm not sure. It could be something that happened as a very young calf, because that could be the result of a predator injury if it got the top of the tail, which is obviously much easier when you're small and close to the ground. But I'll have to give that one a think, Pizza Man, because it is an interesting injury. I have not seen an elephant with its pretty much its entire tail missing. There's always something left. Kit Kat, you wanted to know, at what age do male elephants stop having musk? Kit Kat, it seems like the zebras want all the attention. So male elephants, Kit Kat, they don't stop having must. They can continue to breed until the day they die, essentially. So they don't have must. They don't stop having must. If you're not sure what must is a period in an elephant bull's life. It's cyclical. And they can come into must at any time once they're past the age of about 16 or so. When they're young, must is... I kind of imagine it as adolescence, like going through their first period of hormonal changes in adolescence. So when they're young, it's not very predictable, not very cyclical. It's just kind of all happening at once, and they can be very temperamental. As they get older, those periods of must become more obvious. less scattered, more concentrated. And essentially it's a period where they are ready to mate. So everything about them becomes focused on mating. Their hormones are on the rise. They are sending out must calls infrasonically, letting everyone know in the area that, hey, I'm in must and I'm ready to mate, and if you are ready to, come find me. And if you're my competitor, move out of the way. So it's giving a lot of signals, but it's all revolving around mating and reproduction. As they get older, must doesn't necessarily get stronger, but it falls into a really nice cycle. And I suppose the elephant bulls get more used to it. So though theoretically an elephant bull can mate from the time that they reach maturity, they've left their herd, they've experienced their first must, they can theoretically mate around that time, so that's their late teens. They've still got to compete with other large bulls that are very used to their must, know how to control it, know how to use it to their advantage. They still have to compete with those individuals. So most of the time, elephants are only really getting to mate around the time they're 27-ish. But even that has been a little bit disputed because a lot of the time, elephant bulls in their early 20s, if two other bulls are busy fighting each other, they can kind of sneak in, mate with the female in estrus and then leave. So we can't really say, actually. But must doesn't stop, or at least we don't know it to stop. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't. And that brings up another interesting discussion, and that's about menopause. It's been asked about many times, why is it that humans have menopause and most other animals don't? In fact, there's only a few other animals that do. And off the top of my head, pilot whales and orcas. But pretty much it was thought that all other animals don't go through menopause. I wonder if it was also bats. But anyway, definitely pilot whales and orcas. But recently it has been discovered that it's likely that many other animals go through menopause too. Now, that doesn't necessarily it's menopause as we know it, but they are unable to reproduce anymore, coming to an age where they're unable to reproduce anymore. So we really only thought that was possible, or that it was only observed in a few animals. And humans, it's very obvious, obviously, because our population lives for longer, we have several generations in our families. But we also need to think about why that is. In humans, 150,000 years ago, they were not living very long. If you were dying by the time you were 40 years old, you might not even have noticed that you stopped reproducing, right? So we think that perhaps a similar thing is happening with other animals. Maybe because our lifespan has been extended and we know how long we can actually live for, thanks to modern medicine and our homes, our families, and everything else that has become civilization. It has given us a window into what happens to our bodies for the next 40 years. So with animals, maybe we just haven't seen animals old enough to actually be experiencing menopause or a cease in reproduction. And I think it was discovered that perhaps chimps could go through some kind of menopause. And it was just a matter of looking at very old animals, old individuals. ultimately, biologically, all that matters is that at your peak, you are alive. Reproductively, at your peak, you are alive. I've always been told that the meaning of life, I mean, from my biological teachers, not from my parents, I've always been told that the meaning of life is to make more of me. So all that matters is that you make sure your genetics are pushed forward. And so at your peak, you are making the best of your reproductive value. And beyond that, I'm again speaking biologically, beyond that, you're not terribly useful to your species. But as humans, we have extended our lives. We have found that indeed having several generations, raising children is very valuable. It's very good for experience and knowledge and passing down those things. And perhaps with other animals, we just have not seen that kind of extended life experience that allows us to study menopause. So maybe must does end for elephant bulls at some point. Look at this beautiful face. That beautiful face is telling me, all right, Trishala, we get it, menopause, lovely. Can we talk about me now? Es Mississippi! W, you say so beautiful. I'm not even sure I said your name right. But it is beautiful indeed. I wonder if we can have a nice look at its pupil. Yes, show it to us. They should have quite wide pupils, not necessarily rectangular like a goat, but quite similar. It almost looks like a rounded, like an oval on its side. Oh, things have really calmed down now. Lots of standing around. Zebras have gotten into the waterhole. The elephants have, for the most part, moved off. We've just got 3 more there. Got another individual with some interesting looking horns. The elephants get really annoyed at the other animals here at Old Donyo, which I find pretty amusing because there's always other animals around. And sometimes it looks like the elephants are herding the others. Della, you wanted to know if gorillas have menopause. So, from the apes, I know that most recently, I think it was about a year ago or so, the study came out that fully documented that chimpanzees do experience menopause. With the gorillas, there were some murmurings of them experiencing menopause as well, but it wasn't documented in the same way as it has been with chimps. And we must also understand that it's really not clear cut, because when we think about menopause, we can only empirically only really test for changes in hormone levels and how that affects their ability to reproduce. And also how it affects their ability to reproduce can be different between different species. So the changes in the testosterone, progesterone, or estrogen in our bodies that results in an inability to reproduce anymore, those changes in a different species might not have the same result. So it's not really clear cut. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It just means that it needs to be studied through a more advanced lens, like has been done with the chimpanzees. The zebras are getting very excited. Look at this individual with its ears pulled back. He's got his head down now, but when he lifts up his head again, you might see the ears pulled back. That's very much I'm ready to fight. I'm feeling threatened. There we go. All round discomfort. Hi, Franny J. You'd like to know, you wonder what would happen if a zebra accidentally kicked an elephant. Oh, an elephant would be mad. It probably would not budge, and it would hurt, but I think it would be no match for the elephant, and the elephant would turn around and be very upset about it. Zebras might be able to get out of the way pretty quickly, though. Oh, I love it when we're zoomed in like this and we just see the different patterns move through our field of view. Mercedes, you say it looks like the waterhole is pretty much gone now. It does tend to look this way when a whole lot of animals come through and make the best of it. And they're really giving it a good go. Mrs. Hippie, you say you love how they all get along so well together. It can be a hit and a miss sometimes. Oh, look at this little foal. Oh, you've been in the sand, haven't you? Cutie. It's like it's trying to blend in with the eland. So yeah, Mississippi, it can be a little bit of a hit and a miss. Sometimes they all get along really well. It can be really funny as well. Some of them get lost in each other. Mistakenly, elephant goes off with the buffalo, realize what's happening. Sometimes the buffalo stays with the elephants. It can be really, really entertaining. But for the most part, I suppose they do get along really well together. Everyone gives each other, or at least each species gives the other one some personal space. And they figure it out. Other times it can be completely unpredictable. There can be no sharing tolerated at a waterhole. Yeah, I think the zebra are getting very antsy, and they have been the whole time. And the poor giraffes are still hanging about in the background and on the sides, trying their best to wait until the waterhole clears so they can actually come in and just get a sip of water. Does make you wish that we could make the waterhole larger, right? So they could all have a drink. But this is part of the dance, part of figuring out who's who, what the pecking order is. Oh, very vocal zebras. Oh, and a little bit of bucking there too. Can you believe it, everyone? Our time has pretty much come to an end. I think it was a really awesome live at the waterhole today. All these wonderful Africams that we got to move through. It's really been all about the elephants, hasn't it? But we had some very interesting discussions, and that's what I love about the live show and being interactive, is that you really get my curiosity going, and I love that. So thank you everyone for your questions and your comments. I will see you through the next couple weeks for Live at the Waterhole, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.